Welcome to Concrete Block, the podcast where we dive into the latest news and trends shaping our world. I'm your host, Walter. Today, we're going to explore the impact of the recent US-Iran ceasefire on global markets and economies. The announcement of a ceasefire has sent shockwaves through the financial world, with oil prices plummeting nearly 15% in response to the news. However, many analysts believe that oil prices will remain higher for longer due to ongoing uncertainty over the Strait of Hormuz. This has led to a new Trump trade, playbook, where investors are placing shorter-term bets on assets that may have become mispriced during the Iran war. Some investors are looking to energy-producing nations like Canada and Norway, whose currencies could shine if oil prices remain elevated. Others are betting on a bond bounce back, as government borrowing costs in countries like the UK and Eurozone have plunged in response to easing inflation concerns. We'll also examine how investors are hunting out anomalies in the market, seeking opportunities in sectors that should be more immune to geopolitical tensions. Global healthcare stocks, for example, have been trading in line with economically cyclical businesses since the war started, despite being considered relatively defensive during recessions. As we navigate this complex and ever-changing landscape, one thing is clear: the ceasefire has introduced a new level of uncertainty into the markets. With President Trump's rhetoric likely to keep markets volatile, investors will need to stay on their toes to capitalize on emerging opportunities. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're diving into a complex web of international relations as Hungary and Russia strengthen their economic and cultural ties. According to recent reports, Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó and Russian Health Minister Mikhail Murashko signed a 12-point cooperation plan in December, covering energy, infrastructure, trade, and cultural exchanges. This development comes amid a closely watched election in Hungary, where Prime Minister Viktor Orbán is seeking re-election. The cooperation plan commits Moscow and Budapest to reverse the negative trend in bilateral trade and expand cooperation in various sectors, including energy, industry, healthcare, agriculture, and construction. It's worth noting that Orbán has maintained warm ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin, despite the Ukraine war and the European Union's efforts to isolate and weaken Russia. Hungary remains heavily reliant on Russian oil and gas, and Orbán has blocked the implementation of an EU loan to Ukraine agreed upon in December. The Kremlin has dismissed suggestions that the leaked phone call between Orbán and Putin could hurt the Hungarian leader's electoral prospects, instead portraying him as pragmatic and effective. Meanwhile, U.S. officials have expressed concerns about Russia's influence in Hungary and the potential implications for European security. As we navigate this intricate landscape of international politics, it's essential to consider multiple perspectives and evaluate the facts. The cooperation plan between Hungary and Russia raises important questions about the balance of power in Europe and the role of national interests in shaping diplomatic relationships. Welcome back to the Concrete Block. As we wrap up today's show, I'd like to take a moment to discuss some of the pressing international stories that have been making headlines lately. The recent developments in the Middle East, particularly with regards to the US and Iran, have left many wondering what the future holds for this volatile region. According to reports from France 24, an ex-sommelier might not be the best source for insight into the complex geopolitics at play here, but experts like Professor Scott Lucas from the Clinton Institute, University College Dublin, offer valuable perspectives. He suggests that the current ceasefire between the US and Iran is not a moment of resolution, but rather a recalibration of strategies, acknowledging the limitations of military escalation. Meanwhile, an ex-head sommelier at Cordon Bleu might know his wine, but it's the diplomatic efforts and regional positioning of countries like Iran that are strengthening their hands in these negotiations. It's crucial to consider multiple viewpoints when evaluating these situations, including those from within the region itself, as well as from international observers. As we navigate this complex landscape, it's essential to prioritize fairness and balance in our understanding, avoiding bias and considering all available information. The art of choosing and tasting wine might be nuanced, but the stakes in international diplomacy are far higher. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay informed.